Hello world and all my friends and subscribers. So today I'm doing a quick tutorial on how I did my plague drone's eyes, and this also applies to gems and glass. So this is the same technique I use for that. So I'm going to be doing it on just my little helper of Festus the Leech Lord, and these are the materials I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be using Liquitex gloss varnish for this, and that is just to give the shine and add the colour to, and you'll see how I do that in a minute. And also I'm going to be using Reeves acrylic paints, and I'm going to be using the colours titanium white and Mars black for the base, and medium yellow and phthalo green I'm going to be mixing up into a green colour to show you how I colour the gloss varnish. So I'm going to start off here by showing you what my bugs look like. So this is what their eyes look like and what you can expect the effect to look like. I really like the way they turned out, and a couple of people asked me how I did it, so I thought I'd put this together. So here is my little dude, and what I did first was just paint a kind of base color of a dark grey on the eyeball. So I used some reference pictures to help me just kind of imagine the way a gem would look, and I actually took like a digital painting tutorial to actually get the effect I wanted. I can't show you the reference picture I used because it's not mine to show, but I will give a link to it in the description box below, so you can check it out and see what I mean and use it for yourself as well. It's really handy to have a reference picture when you're trying to replicate any kind of effect. So I started off with the dark grey as a base tone, and I'm going to be putting a medium grey onto the eye next, and I'm basically putting it everywhere apart from leaving a dark rim around the edges. So this is in black and white, so monotone, and you'll see why in a moment. I just found that this was the easiest way to replicate the effect I wanted. And it also gives it a kind of a depth as well. So here I'm going in with the light grey, and I'm copying the reference photo here and just covering the bottom half of the lighter grey with this very light grey. So it's kind of like a half moon type shape in the bottom of the eyeball. So the last step I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing a tiny bit of the grey into some white so that it's not completely white, and I'm going to be putting a kind of a very light spot in the bottom right hand corner of the eyeball, so that when you put the glaze, the coloured glaze over the top, that really shines and gives it a lot of depth. And here you can see up close what I mean as I show you a close-up of the kind of monotone colours and what they look like. So next I'm going to be mixing up a green colour that I'm looking for, and I'm going to be using the phthalo green and the medium yellow of the Reeves acrylics to do this. And I kind of was going for quite a light coloured green, kind of acid colour if you think about that cartoony acid type colour. So once I've got my colour mixed up, I'm going to add some of the Liquitex gloss varnish to my palette, only a couple of drops. And then I'm going to be mixing a very small amount of the colour of acrylic paint into the gloss varnish. Now you don't have to use acrylic varnish when doing this, as long as your paint is going to be compatible with your varnish and you can mix it in. You can use, of course you can use any paint for this as well. Like you can use your GW or Vallejo or whatever paints you want to do this technique. It's not specific to acrylic paints, of course, as is with all my techniques I do. So once I've got it mixed to what I think is the best consistency, I check it on my fingernail just to see how transparent it is. Now with this Liquitex varnish, it's kind of milky, so it will change the color a little bit, so it's really hard to tell just how opaque it really is or what the true color will be in the end. So that's why I always mix my colors on the palette first and then add small amounts to the varnish. And I always mix it so that it is kind of lighter than maybe I think it should be, because I can always put on more coats rather than having it too dark and then the grey scale underneath doesn't show through, and that would be kind of a bummer and a waste of time. So then I'm just going to paint a couple of layers onto the eye. The first layer is a little bit light, so I go in and do a second layer over the top until I'm happy with the colour. And I did use this technique on another item, which I did a glass bottle that Festus is holding, and you can see that in another video. And that I had to do several more layers because it was a bigger area and I used a lot more, of course there was a lot more grey to cover. So once I've finished and happy with the result so far, I waited for the gloss to dry completely, and then I went in with my number 0 brush and pure white paint and put in some kind of shine marks. Now if I was doing this as like a normal eye, before I put the gloss coat on, I would have put a black pupil in the eye at that stage when it's all that monotone grey colour. I would have put a pure black pupil as big as I wanted in the middle, and that would create a really nice eye effect. But I wanted to show you how it would look the way that I had it for my plague bearers so that you could see how I did that. And so I put the shine marks on, wait for those to dry, and then I went over again with just clear gloss varnish just to seal the white paint onto the eye, and then it's all done. And here's a finished photograph of the finished eye, and as you can see it looks pretty good. If it had a black pupil in it, it would look very realistic, like a normal eye would, but of course it does look better on bigger eyes. You're not going to get this in any smaller scale. And also the blending of the grey doesn't need to be too great. Like you can have quite a good contrast in your greys. It's not going to be an issue at this scale, of course, that it's going to show up. If you were doing a huge eye, of course, that would be a different story. But with these scales, you don't need to blend it. It's just a simple kind of shapes, as you could tell from the reference photo if you've had a look at it. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope that was helpful. Let me know in the comments below if you thought that was helpful, interesting. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Please share with your friends and subscribe if you're not already to catch up with what else I'm doing. So thank you very much, and I'll see you later. Bye. These are the tiles that you play on, and I open them up in a second. This is what I'm dealing with, trying to film right now. The neighbour's dogs are barking, and the neighbour is moving his stock, which apparently he's not allowed to do according to my dogs. He's not allowed to go anywhere really. So when he moves his cows, or when he does anything, he gets told off, and that's why I have to deal with this barking all the time. Right, Toos?